Good morning, First Unitarian. We're so very glad that you're here with us today, and a special welcome to our visitors. Whether you're here in this beautiful sanctuary or watching from home, wherever you might be, welcome. Our call to worship today is from House Made of Dawn by N. Scott Momaday, a Kiowa novelist and poet. He walked hurriedly along the edge of the town. At the last house, he paused and took off his shirt. His body was numb and ached with cold. He knelt at the mouth of the oven, reached inside, then rubbed his arms and chest with the cold ashes. He got up and went on in the darkness. There was no sound but his own quick, even steps on the hard crust of the snow. The pale light grew upon the land, soft above the black mesa. He was almost there, and he saw the runners standing away in the distance. He came among them, and they huddled in the cold together, waiting. The pale light before the dawn rose up in the valley, but at the saddle of the hills, there was nothing. There was only the clear pool of eternity. They held their eyes upon it, waiting, and the void began to deepen and change. Pumice, pearl, mother of pearl, then the pale and brilliant blush of orange and of rose. And then the deep rim ran with fire, and the sudden cold flare of the dawn struck upon the ark, and the runners sprang away. He was running, and his body cracked with pain, and he was running on. The sun rose up in the saddle and shone upon the road across the snow-covered valley, and the chill of the night fell away. He was running, and a cold sweat broke out upon him, and his breath heaved with the pain. His legs buckled, and he fell in the snow. And he got up and ran on. All of his being was concentrated in the sheer motion of running on, and then he was past caring about the pain. Pure exhaustion laid hold of his mind, and he could see at last without having to think. He could see the canyons and the mountains and the sky. He could see the river and the fields beyond. He was running, and under his breath he began to sing. And he went running on the rise of the song, house made of pollen, house made of dawn. Once again, welcome.
Opened a book, found a four-leaf clover, turned a page and there was October. And as I stared into autumn's eyes, saw a death that never dies. And I watched as the leaves were turning, falling into the wind and swirling. How we break, we mend, we tremble. That's how I found November. And we spend another day, another dawn, another year, another song. Into winter we surrender, deep into its splendor. In mirth we warm our bones, we dream these seeds will sow. Praise the birth of a star, January's not too far. Savior, like the sun it shines, resurrecting one more time. And we spin another day, another dawn, another year, another song. Oh, the joys now I remember, I think I'll tell you in a letter of all the love in a budding rose. Flowers come and flowers go, and to the drunkards that dance on tables, one fell off right into April, to the hour of a child's birth, to the evening of all her searching. And we spin another day, another dawn, another year, another song. Opened a book, found a four-leaf clover, turned a page and there was October. And as I stared into autumn's eyes, I saw a death that never dies.
Hello. I'm Erin Kenworthy, a staff member here at First Unitarian Society of Denver. If I don't know you or you don't know me, welcome and good morning. Along with our other staff, Matt, Lena, and Shannon, I have the pleasure of serving this community as the Director of Religious Exploration. I first walked into this sanctuary in the late summer of 2009, not a Unitarian Universalist, not a member here, and now I'm on staff, which would have blown my mind 15 years ago if you told me that this is where I would be working now. When I walked into this sanctuary, one of the first things that I noticed after the gorgeous array of people who were here were these stained glass windows in the sanctuary. And we've recently redone our building. We did a renovation, but these windows have remained here, and I'm really glad and thankful that they are still here. If you'll notice, the colors in them are like orange and yellow, some red, some pink, and some blue. And on my drive in this morning outside, those colors were with me on my drive in the changing trees and the bright sky that is outside on this lovely Sunday morning. I love the fall, and I also love these windows. When I first arrived here years ago, I was very confused about religion, pretty angry, and I was wondering about God and goddesses and the universe and truth, and I think I came here to try to sort it out and to heal and to reconnect with what felt connective to me, instead of what other people had told me should feel connective. And on that journey, my first few months here, I took a class with Reverend Mike. And I was frustrated, and along the way I asked him a question about how to tolerate people and places and religions that were intolerant of others. And he told me about the stained glass windows, and that the light comes through all of the panes of glass, the different shapes and the different colors and the different sizes. And for me, my questions shifted. In RE, in religious exploration here, when we have class, we light our chalice partially for the light of truth, and we do this, we say the light of truth. We say the warmth of love, the light of truth, and the energy of action when we light our chalice. And I think maybe that light of truth shines through different people and places and religions, and you might have to look and listen a little bit more, but it's there. And that's what these stained glass windows remind me of every time I get to walk into this sanctuary, or when I walk upstairs into our chapel with that huge, beautiful stained glass window up there. If you've never seen that window, please go and check it out. I just want to say, this building was first built for a Christian denomination, and then we moved in here. And that window has question marks all over it. Now that I've said it, if you go up there and look, it is a stained glass window full of question marks, which is so fitting for a Unitarian Universalist congregation, and those of us who walk through the doors who are searching to find where that light and that truth can come into our lives. So I am glad that you are here this morning in the presence of these windows and the beautiful people who are here with you also. And I want to remind you that next week we are going to have our service outside, weather permitting. It's looking good right now. But we'll be at Alamo Placido Park at 10 a.m. We will not be here in the building. We will have our service at the park, and it will be a service of remembrance. So you are invited to bring photos and items or small snacks and food that remind you of loved ones who are no longer with us this year and last year. And if you want to go back further, you are welcome to do that. But we will hold space to remember through music and through poem and reading, and remember our loved ones who are no longer here with us. And after that, for the people who are here with us, we will have some light refreshments and a Halloween dance party. And you are invited to wear your costumes and come and dance outside at 11 o'clock in the morning in a public park. Leave your inhibitions at home and come and access some joy with us in this community as we move forward into whatever is coming next for our community as we navigate maybe the end of a pandemic and maybe the beginning of something different. So please come and be with us next week at Alamo Placido Park. If you need details, please look on our website or in First Announce. The information is there. Blessings on your morning.
Good morning. This is now the time for our offertory. I ask you to reflect on these windows, the music we share, and the love you have for this congregation, and give as generously as you are able to support the work and life of this congregation. You can do this online using your Breeze account, and there will also be baskets outside as you leave the sanctuary. Thank you.
Good morning, First Unitarian. I gotta say, it is just really nice to see the spaces filling in with your beautiful faces again. Man. A couple joys and concerns of our larger community I want to share. I want to let you know Sally Madsen had surgery this past week. She is home and recovering. Her sister-in-law has come into town to help her with her recovery and take care of a few things while she starts physical therapy and healing and all that. I want to let you know that Jane Derrick had a minor stroke and a fall last week while they were in Texas, and she is receiving care, and the prognosis at the moment looks very good, and we're very grateful for that. And I want to hold up our dear friend Randall Loeb, who many of us know and love. Randall had a case of breakthrough COVID and was very, very ill. Had a hard time eating and breathing. He was on quarantine for 10 days and was just released from quarantine on this past Friday. So he's back where he stays and hopefully will be doing much better. Our prayer today, on our theme for the morning, was written by the Reverend Dr. Howard Thurman. And if that's not a name that is familiar to you, I encourage you to become familiar with Reverend Dr. Howard Thurman. Mystic, a leader, minister, philosopher, theologian, just an astonishingly brilliant, sensitive, spiritual man. And this prayer, which he titled, "The Lord is the Strength of My Life," is just solidly, beautifully out of the intellectual black church tradition in this country. The Lord is. Is God an ideal in my mind? A rumor planted by old tales, born of fear when life was young and death lurked behind every bush? Is God the desire in my heart, a longing that goes always unfulfilled? Is God the restlessness I feel after dreams have come to pass and all my hopes have built themselves into facts? Is God the indescribable tenderness that creeps into the voice unawares, that steals into the fingers as they linger momentarily in the hand of a friend? Is God the endless churning of the turbulent sea, or the steady shining of the stars against the blackness of the sky? Is God the quenchless aching of the conscience over sins committed and the vast cleansing in the soul riding the wave of forgiveness that sweeps all before it? The Lord is. He is more than tongue can tell, than mind can think, than heart can feel. The Lord is my strength. When days are done and in weariness I lay me down to sleep, when fear becomes a lump in my throat and an illness in my stomach, when the waters of temptation engulf me and I strangle beneath the waves, when I have thought myself empty and the solution to my problem hides, lurking in the shadows of my mind, when the disease of my body tightens its grip and my doctor picks up the broken lances of his skill and knowledge and takes his leave, when the tidings are of brooding clouds of war and of marching feet and humming planes moving in the awful rhythm of the dirge of death, the Lord is the strength of my life. Of whom and of what shall I be afraid? Amen. Thank you for that. That was a real gift. I feel like I've been to church. I'm not kidding. So in this month, when our whole soul living theme is spiritual practices, let's talk about God with a couple of small caveats. First one, remember, and I do urge you to remember, that the God that many people do not believe in is not necessarily the same God that many other people do believe in. In other words, like when someone tells me they don't believe in God, and they do that pretty often, I'll often ask them, tell me about this God that you don't believe in. And 9 times out of 10, what they describe is something very much like what they remember from Sunday school, that white-haired, muscled, old white man in the sky. Omnipotent, omniscient, omnipresent, omnibenevolent, omni-judging, omni-unbelievable. And that is a perfectly wonderful God in whom not to believe. And we should remember that, thank God, the typical adult Presbyterian, Episcopalian, Catholic, Lutheran, Methodist, Jew, or Muslim doesn't believe in that God either. That fatherly God in the sky, that is a concrete image created for 3rd grade Sunday school and a religious education that doesn't go further than 3rd grade is not much of a religious education. It is also my personal experience that even thoughtful adults too often go down an intellectual and spiritual dead end by starting with the wrong question. In other words, if you start with the question, does God exist? And what you mean by that is there an otherworldly, supernatural being that has created the universe as we know it and exists outside of the universe as we know it? Well, the only possible answer to that question is nobody knows. Because if it's outside the universe as we know it, then by definition it's beyond any knowledge we might have about it. No wonder the search for God feels to many people like a rigged game of hide and seek, the proverbial searching in a dark room for a black cat that isn't there. And many of us never explore further possibilities if we start with that question, correctly sensing that you can't get there from that starting point. Wisdom suggests other ways. Beautiful souls throughout history and across cultures remind us that our inner lives are more important than our outer lives. And in my humble opinion, this kind of wisdom has never been more desperately needed in the world and in this culture that knows the price of everything and the value of nothing. Sufi poets, Jewish and Christian mystics, transcendentalists, the great Buddhist, Indian, Chinese, and Japanese philosophers, indigenous spiritualities all over the world in various ways and in various languages are unanimous in telling us to dwell not on material things, but on the present moment, right here and right now, to dwell on the experience of beauty, on the transcendence of love, on the intuition and revelation of truth and interdependence, on our deepest yearnings for justice or connection, on the outrage and pain we feel at injustice or disconnection or loneliness. Because those, right, that is the real stuff of our lives, the sources of meaning and fulfillment and connection. No matter what we might or might not have in our bank accounts, or who or what we might look like, or who we hang around with, or what kind of cars we drive or clothes we wear, and on and on. It is fascinating to me that there's this mystic thread that runs through every spiritual tradition I know of, no matter how disparate or divergent the dogmas or doctrines that we tend to put labels on. Mystics across time and language fundamentally agree on a few, what I call great spiritual propositions. They would agree just basically that there's more to life and more to us than can be discerned through our physical senses. The electromagnetic spectrum, right, is huge. We only perceive this little bitty sliver of it. And we maintain that there are other realities, both within ourselves and beyond the veil of what we can sense, feel, taste, touch, smell. They would agree that whatever we might call this larger reality, this unseen unity, God or Allah, or the unity that makes us one, or the mystery at the heart of the universe, whatever label we use, we should never fool ourselves, because words are only labels. And to confuse a label with the reality would be as foolish as confusing a map with the real territory out there that we must traverse. They would be passionate that while the intellect can play with ideas or concepts about divinity or God or the unity that makes us one, all of that can only be realized or felt or approached by great love. A humble opening of the heart and spirit to accept and follow and be transformed by the grace of that larger transcendent reality. You can't think your way into it, in other words. And they would be in remarkable agreement that the doctrines and the dogmas, all of them, are human creations. And they would understand that the divine speaks to or arises in the heart of every individual soul in utterly unique ways, kind of like Aaron was talking about with these stained glass windows, right? Everything, every person, every faith tradition is a different shape, color, opacity, texture, but there's like a divine truth that shines through every one of them. That's on the other side. We don't get to see that directly. And so, knowing that, in their best mystic selves, they would refrain from judgment and spiritual pride. And lastly, they would agree that the goal is not to capture or acquire or anything along those lines when it comes to the divine, but rather to be captured by, to be transformed and ever transforming in an ongoing process, a continuing unfolding of the soul, never finished, never at rest. In her book, Pilgrim at Tinker Creek, Annie Dillard lays what I believe is a solid foundation for connecting with divinity. When she wrote this, I just think this is profound. God does not demand that we give up our personal dignity, that we throw in our lot with random people, that we lose ourselves and turn from all that is not God. God needs nothing, asks nothing, demands nothing. Like the stars, it is a life with God that demands these things. Experience has taught the race that if knowledge of God is the end, then these habits of life are not the means, but the conditions in which the means operate. You don't have to do these things. Not at all. God does not, I regret to report, give a hoot. You do not have to do these things unless you want to know God. They work on you, not on God. You do not have to sit outside in the dark. If, however, you want to look at the stars, you will find that darkness is necessary. But the stars neither require nor demand it. So a little while ago, I made a point that asking if God exists is simply the wrong question. And I think that's true. Because it's just not as simple as like, is there or isn't there? Let me suggest a better question. What mysteries of yours and mine, what mysteries of our lived depth experience might be worthy of imagining as divine? It's a very different question. What mysteries of our own lived experience might be worthy of imagining as divine? So here's a few things that wisdom suggests. And to be clear, I'm not personally claiming any especially deep mystic or esoteric knowledge of these things. Like most of you, I am a seeker, not a saint. I just spend a lot of time studying this stuff. 5 things that wisdom suggests if you want to connect with divinity. First, accept and know that you're already divine. You are already nature. You are already love. Wisdom, and it turns out, modern science tells us that at the most basic elemental reality, everything is overlapping fields of energy. Everything. You and I, the chair you're sitting on, crocuses, humpback whales, the horseshoe nebula, God, all of it. Overlapping fields of energy, which I like to call a field of possibility, into which heavens to Murgatroyd, Jim Shively emerged into this field of possibility. And so did you. Interdependent, interrelated, having emerged from a common source and heading towards a common destiny, and there's nothing you can do about it. You can only choose to ignore it, or you can learn to see and experience the endless permutations of it. Second, be aware that language, the words you use, are powerful. Language creates much of your world, whoever you are. There's a reason Christian scripture begins with these words. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. The words we use, even just in our heads, even if we don't express them, shape our experience of the world. They shape our relationships with others. They are the literal filter through which we interpret and make meaning of everything. Every experience you've ever had. Inner, outer, depth, superficial, all of it, you have filtered it, understood it, processed it through words. Try this little thought experiment. Next time you're experiencing tension or find yourself in an argument with someone, like right in the middle of the argument, sing some Beatles in your head. Love, love, love. Love, love, love. Love, love, love. Bop, 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 ba ba da bop. Right? See if that doesn't change the tone and content of the next thing that comes out of your mouth. And that might sound silly or trivial, but I suggest to you it is neither. As Dominique Christina has reminded us from this pulpit, your words create your world. Third thing, not only is there no time like the present, there literally is no other time than the present. The past, the future are constructions, they are figments, they are creations that even if you're thinking about them, you're still doing that in the present. Beyond that, I'm going to quote Patrick Garlinger here, the power of the present moment resides in the fact that each moment is a rebirth. In this very instance, you are created anew. From moment to moment. And true, we typically recreate ourselves in the same image again and again and again, from one moment to the next. Yet, we are always gifted with a new choice, with an option, with a chance. And when we embrace that we are light and our essence is love, that we are connected to God and our words constitute ourselves, we can reclaim a new self from moment to moment. This one to that one, right now, all the time. This, here I'm quoting again, this is the truth of the resurrection. To die in each instant and be reborn anew in the next, and in so doing, to proclaim for ourselves our whole selves, our true selves. Fourth, everything, even your pain and anguish, is a portal, is an opportunity, is a way in, a way through. Nothing in wisdom literature suggests that a spiritual life is a life absent of pain, or that connecting with divinity is only bliss. Wisdom suggests that bliss is illusory and transitory, and in any case, probably pretty boring. The path is not about bliss, but about acceptance. Not about an absence of pain, but about truth and reconciliation and integration so that we become whole instead of fragmented, connected instead of isolated. Lastly, and this is both difficult and, I think, brilliantly joyful. And that is that truth is in paradox. And spiritual maturity arises from being able to hold and live in that, yes, paradoxically. To be both unresolved and at peace. To be connected to all that is and completely individuated. To be infinitely precious and utterly insignificant. To be perfect exactly as you are in this moment and someone in need of healing. To be a being of pure thought, soul, and spirit, and a body that aches and sweats and ages and will die. Wisdom says that learning to live in and love the paradox is exactly what a spiritual life demands of us. Is exactly the source of a truer, authentic humility. Is exactly how we source the openness of mind and heart and spirit that allows us to connect with whatever divine or imaginal sources or energies might be moving in the universe, moving within our very selves, enlivening the energy of our lives, our language, our thought, our love. So, in what I believe is the very best spirit of this particular faith tradition, I'm going to close with some questions that I hope might suggest a way in or through or opening for you and for us. Have you ever found yourself inexplicably able to forgive someone who has hurt you? Able to see the pain in them that caused them to cause pain in you? Have you ever been just surprised by your ability to maintain faith and hope and joy, even in crushing circumstances? Have you ever just laughed out loud spontaneously at the sheer absurdity of life? Have you ever felt overwhelmed with gratitude, where even the spaces between your cells resonated with the knowledge that every moment of your life has been an incredible gift? Have you ever felt deep and unspeakable outrage at witnessing or learning about or experiencing an injustice? Have you ever had your breath taken away by a sudden certainty that everything you see and everything you are and everything that has ever been or will be are only the myriad reflections of a larger connected unity? Have you ever been just stopped, momentarily speechless from the sheer beauty of nature, or a child, or of moonlight, or the brilliance of autumn leaves? If you answered yes to any of these, you might already be closer to divinity than you think. Amen. And may it be so.
If you're ever interested in joining us, the choir sings every Sunday afternoon from 12:30 to 2 p.m. at Alamo Placita Park, which is where our service will be next week. Would you please rise in body and or spirit and join me in speaking our closing affirmation, the words for which you can hopefully find on the projector to my left. Behind all our differences and beneath our diversity, there is a unity that makes us one and binds us forever together throughout all time, through life and death, and the space between the stars. Please join me in, as you are comfortable, in doing the ASL for our closing affirmation, and I ask you to refrain from singing this morning.
Our benediction was written by Reverend Jacob Trapp, who was once a minister of this congregation. So it was said to Moses at the burning bush, "Put off the shoes of the habitual," said an Hasidic rabbi. "Let your bare feet touch the ground, experience things afresh." "He who can no longer stand wrapped in wonder and awe," said Einstein, is as good as dead, his eyes are closed. If the doors of perception are opened, said William Blake, then everything will appear as it is, infinite. From the touch of my feet to the grass, said Walt Whitman, spring 100 affections. Our service is ended. Go in peace.